open our hearts to your merciful calling, to clothe the naked, to feed the hungry, to free the captive, and to love one another as you have loved us. In the name of the Creator, Savior, and Sustainer, we pray together. Amen.
Amen.
Did you know that mercy hasn't always been considered a virtue? Yeah, I see some eyebrows raised. Yeah. Mercy hasn't been a virtue in all cultures at all times. There are some cultures where mercy is considered weakness. And in Jesus' day and age, that was it's a rough estimation of the Roman take on mercy. To be merciful was to be weak. To be merciful was to be easily manipulated. To be merciful was to unwisely give away your power. It's really a different take than I think we're used to. Now, this would have been in the culture that Jesus grew up in. This would have surrounded him. This would have been an understanding that people kind of got. And given the way the Romans operated in society, it was understandable. They kind of sowed lack of mercy wherever they went. They sowed it. So we have here Jesus standing on the side of a mountain teaching a whole crowd of people. And he offers an alternative to what they had kind of been bathed in at this point, right? He offers an alternative, one that's kind of baked into Jewish culture. Mercy is actually really important. Over time, I've talked a little bit about the concept of chesed, and this is the concept of God's loving kindness. And I've talked a little bit about how it kind of transforms us. I've also talked about how it operates in a cycle. You give and receive in a cycle. Humans take part in that too. We give and receive. Mercy is that giving and receiving. It is the action in that cycle. So Jesus is reteaching everybody there this tradition of giving and receiving of mercy. Mercy is a good thing. Mercy is loving kindness shared. Mercy is the thing that kind of holds creation together. It's an experience of forgiveness. It's an experience of love. Now, I'm kind of curious, and you guys can answer this, so raise your hand and just shout. What would you say mercy looks like for us today? How does our culture think of mercy? Forgiveness? Yeah. In my children's sermon at Grace River, one of the things that we talked about was getting in trouble. Because we have kids that age, right? They get in trouble, and then they get talked to, and sometimes, the stated punishment for that particular kind of trouble, right? It mercifully gets waived, right? It's, oh, don't worry, I get it, you understand it, I know you're not going to do wrong. We'll just move on from there. That's that forgiveness, the forgiveness side of mercy. Yeah. Do we have any more?
I think we have a belief that mercy is for other people.
Ah, yeah. Believing that mercy is for other people. Okay. All right. Well, okay, I have some questions. When you think of somebody who's dealing with medical debt, what do you think they would say mercy is?
Having the debt forgiven.
Having that debt forgiven, yeah. How about somebody experiencing homelessness?
Giving them a helping hand. Giving them a helping hand or a hand up.
Giving them a hand up, yeah. Yeah, maybe housing. Think of the warming shelter that we have, the warming center in the church. Yeah, that is an act of mercy. Yeah. We have a society where we have numbers of examples. We can talk about race. What is somebody whose skin color is different than us going to say about mercy? Especially as it really...
Sitting with them at lunch in school.
Yeah. Sitting with, I'm assuming, kids.
I was thinking in terms of kids, but yeah, if you see them sitting by themselves, go sit with them.
Yeah. Yeah, what is mercy to someone who's isolated? What is mercy to someone who just doesn't have? Yeah. Is mercy a virtue for our society?
It's getting better. It's getting better than decades ago. Compared to then, it is now. I think we use mercy.
So maybe we're learning to grow into that virtue as a society. Maybe, yeah. Now, I think there's a couple of different things going on in our culture in regards to mercy. I think the Roman understanding is still alive and well with us today. And you see it in the way that, so forcing control, if you think of our patrons at the warming center, they're told to get out of most places. This is the only place, and it was a fight to have permission to have them here. But they're told to get out of most places, and that's kind of that Roman understanding of, if you follow the law, then you wouldn't need, it's kind of one of those control things. We have other things too. We could get into it. Again, just in the examples that we just talked about, we can think of those places where someone has control and is enforcing that in a way that we wouldn't consider merciful. But just as that understanding is alive and well with us today, the Christian understanding, Jesus' understanding, is alive and well with us as well. We've got a lot to sort through when it comes to mercy, but if we remember God's forgiveness and God's loving kindness, and that we are to reflect that into the world, we will find it easier to see the ones who are naked and cold and need clothes, the ones who are left out in the outdoors. We'll be able to hear the cries of people who need that mercy, who need that support. So, blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the merciful. Now, persecution is a word that we sometimes throw around in our culture, but how many of us have experienced it? Okay. There's always a couple of people that raise their hand. So what is persecution? What is persecution? I actually went through and I looked up the legal definition of it, and kind of there's a few different definitions that kind of focus on different areas, and I got kind of a general sense of it. It is, and this is a long list, and I'm not including details. It includes the deprivation of the use of property, incitement to abuse, arrest, torture, murder, and sometimes execution, physical harm, including but not limited to what I just listed, coercive medical or psychological treatment, economic persecution, preventing parents from having the company of their children, for reasons of race or culture or religion, severe criminal extortion or bribery, lack of access to education, lack of access to medical care, all of these are considered persecution. Usually multiple things, it has to be multiple things instead of just one thing at a time. And it is all based on how you are different from the culture that surrounds you. Persecution is actually a very specific thing. It's overt, very often material discrimination by a group of people or an organization that has actual power over another group. Organizations like governments who have the power to arrest and to force and to coerce. Other organizations too, if you think gangs can be this way as well. You know? And all of this discrimination, as I mentioned before, is based on things like skin color and religion, political beliefs sometimes, culture, country of origin. Blessed are those who are persecuted for my sake. Blessed are those who are persecuted for my sake. Are we persecuted? Are we persecuted?
Well, not in the United States, but if we were in another country, we might be.
Yeah, definitely not in the United States, but in another country, that might be the case. We might experience these things. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Now, yeah.
Without going into the corporate or political world, bringing it way down, 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 would you think the word bullying is part of persecution?
That's a great question.
Is bullying part of persecution? You know, I think, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think bullies can be employed in persecution, and they frequently are. So one of the things in the definition talks about incitement to violence, incitement to harm, and bullies often take that kind of attitude and run with it, and it can become persecution on a small scale if they're exercising power over their victim. You know, sometimes it's very informal power. Sometimes they're involving the teachers or the principal, or, you know, I'm thinking of schoolyard bullying. You know, that can be, there's a gray line there that's kind of permeable, I suspect. So yeah. Blessed are those who come into contact with bullies as well. Now, I've said before that everything in the Beatitudes, including our two today, blessed are the merciful and blessed are those who suffer persecution. It comes down to one thing, and that one thing is hesed. It comes back again, right? That loving kindness that sustains creation and us in it. Mercy is the very action of chesed. It's loving kindness in an actual and even a material way. It's responding to a call for help and offering it without judgment, with understanding, without strings attached. It's offering what is needed when it is needed. And it's understanding that we could and likely will at some point be on the receiving end of that as well as on the giving side. are the merciful, for they understand and actively share God's love. Happy are the merciful, for they understand and share. Blessed are the merciful. Now, from my way of thinking, persecution actually is sometimes an impediment to mercy. And I say this because it can cause us to distrust one another. It can cause us to resent one another. It can cause us a lot of pain that prevents us from being able to share love. But those who meet persecution with integrity, with hope, and with understanding, they can hold on to the chesed in spite of all of that. And in that, they are blessed. They know they are children of love and not of hate. They are blessed. Blessed are those who experience persecution, the opposite of God's loving kindness. And blessed are they who live out that kindness anyway. My prayer for us is that we are merciful. Even in those times when we may be persecuted, I pray that we are merciful. That we answer the cries for help from the people around us. That we meet persecution, and especially the persecution of others, with wisdom and understanding and love. I pray that we are able to see God's loving kindness and not only receive, but to offer it to others as well. Now let us bow our heads in prayer. You guys can follow along, by the way. I think this is responsive. Yes. For everything there is a season.
And in each season of our lives, God is with us.
In our laughter and in our tears.
In
our dancing and in our mourning.
In our silence and in our speech.
In our fighting and in our peacemaking.
For everything there is a season.
And God is with us.
Amen. Now, I would invite you all to sing.